All right, boys, so you want to fucking dial your setters in. You want to have some dogs on the team. So people absolutely come in and crush your company. You know, get more sets on the board, get more closes, make more cash, make more revenue. Everyone's more happy, right? I've spoken to a lot of coaches, entrepreneurs, business people, and a lot of people seem to have a lot of issues with setters. And there's usually some key fundamentals in terms of why this actually happens. But at the end of the day, setting is a dog game, right? It's actually a lot of work to like click dial and make it happen each and every day. So making sure our expectations of the company, KPIs are set, we have a learning management system, we've got things in place so our setters know what they're actually doing, they can come in and crush is super important. So we're breaking down the setter management and ramping an actual setter. A setter is super important, right? It's an actual puzzle piece in your business or your offer that you need to really scale up. Because at the end of the day, you may be putting in hard work through organic content. So you're recording content, you're putting in editing software, you're basically editing your own content, and then you're posting it on social media, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, whatever that may be, right? You may even be paying for editors. So your inputs and your work is going into producing something to be able to actually result leads. The other end of that is ads. Right, you may have ads that you're running. You put in a lot of hard work in terms of actually making good ads for your Instagram or your Facebook, wherever you may be pushing ads to get leads in for your actual business. So the first point of contact is the setup. Who's on the front lines in sales is the most important, right? And they need to be dialed. And part of this is, you know, making everything in their best interest. Like imagine this is your setup, right? So this is Jimmy the setter, right? At the end of the day, he's probably pretty new to sales. Okay, he's probably just learned, he's probably got just some experience. He's been through maybe some courses, some training. Maybe he's been on a few offers before. There's also some veteran SDRs or setters, but at the end of the day, he wants to learn, right? He wants everything in his best interest, and he wants to feel like, you know, he's part of the team and there's a vision for the company, so he can actually grow maybe into a closer, or he can grow further along into the company. So making that apparent is super important. Basically, when onboarding a setter, making things in their best interest, like it's a personal development journey for the actual setter themselves. Really, really important. Part of this is having locked in systems. Okay, like, you know, scripts for the actual setter, right? Also scripts for the closer, because if you're basically your setter's not actually making any money, why would they want to be there? They don't. So having scripts for your setter and a process, SOP, is super important. Understanding your offer, knowing what it's about. Also for your closer, right? Having that dialed in over here as well with scripts and a process. Because if this guy is not closing the deals, your setter in most cases isn't earning money. So the standards here need to be upheld to make this process work. Now, your closers are the same. They want stuff in their best interest as well. So this is company vision, you know, having training, having an LMS learning management system where you can have everything in here to do with your actual company. Okay? What this is going to do is keep one place where they have a full understanding, so they understand your offer almost better than what you do. And this is how you can create, you know, an actual machine that runs for you. Cool. Now, setting is a dog game at the end of the day, but there is some main problems that, you know, I find most coaches, most businesses that I speak to, entrepreneurs basically come into. And the main problems are high setter turnover. So as soon as the setter or team member comes on board, they're there for a few weeks, things aren't done properly, or that maybe the standards aren't set, and they turn over, or they just don't make the dials and they're not on top of stuff. But that's because they can't see the vision, right? Setter's not making enough money. So this comes back to making sure the closers are also dialing, or if you're closing, dialing in your process, so then you can taper off, or you can make more money for yourself, but then eventually you can taper off as well, set up ads or whatever that you may need, or produce more content to be able to make sure leads are actually coming in. No clear expectations or KPIs. So, you know, KPIs should always be set a little bit higher than, you know, what we actually need, because it makes people push harder. That's just how human nature works. lack of training and development, right? Making sure that we've got training and development for your actual setter is really important, because they want to personal develop, they want to get better, they want to make more money. No career progression path. So if they, let's say they want to become a closer and they can't see the vision and actually getting there, that's going to be a problem, because eventually they're going to gas out and they're going to say, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I'll just go find another offer where I can close. So making sure that you can train them in such a way where they can get a closing position, but your company is also growing. So the people in your actual company can see the growth and you can grow together. Poor systems, scripts, tools, weak management and accountability, right? At the end of the day, they need to be doing their job. Low motivation and buy into your actual company, right? So setting these standards is super important, even through the onboarding process. I want to break down some fundamentals of setting, because these fundamentals are OP. It personally got me to 150K month, as in an actual offer, and they actually work on both setting but also closing. But these are super important. Now, phone setting, you got to remember that people they can't see you face to face like this, so it's hard. The trust isn't there as much. Okay, but let's run through it. Conviction and state of being. Having state of being happy, having energetic tone, and all this is super important. They need to believe that you have their best interest in mind. So we're not just setting them for the sake of it. We're setting them because we're actually finding a problem and we want to help them solve that problem and guide them through the mission together. Focus on the prospect and not the set. Focusing on the prospect, actually asking the right questions, and they're going to give us the right answers, is going to make them feel heard. And that is where trust is built through a set call. Keeping energy really high. It's about how you make them feel. Like I mentioned, on a set call, they can only hear your voice. So having the energy high is really important. Listening, not being concerned about your own process. So you should have a criteria to hit in a set call, because every little piece does a job. However, at the end of the day, you don't want to be a script monkey. You want to be able to actually flow and have a conversation with it, and a general conversation is really important. Context in the person in front of me. So you want context on the person, aka a number one hot button or the number one problem. So the number one hot button is actually their hottest button, and what actually makes them move, and their problem in their life, and why they're actually on that call, why they even opted in the first place. Chunking down, which means chunking down on a specific part of the problem and getting clarity on that, and then we can understand their situation better. When prospects speak this out loud, it makes them understand it at a deeper level, right? And that's what a good setter will actually do. The Heaven Island, the next chapter, they need to see what they want to achieve, because you don't want to pull in a set call, pull them too deep, because if you pull them too deep in pain, then they don't want to show up to the closing calls. They're like, why did I even just go through that? You just want to touch on it, clarity, and then push them to Heaven Island. They can see the desire and make them feel really good, and like we can solve their problems, which we can, right? We've got the offer that can basically solve their problem in life and get them to that next level, which is super powerful. We need to understand what's holding the prospect back from achieving their goals. If they could achieve their goals right now and there wasn't a barrier in place in front of them right now, they would go achieve their goals, but they haven't. So why? What's going on there? Need to address the 1.0 version before you make the pitch, right? Everyone comes into a sales process as a 1.0 version, wanting an outcome of a 2.0 version of themselves. So we need to address that, and we need to get clarity on the 1.0 version and why that's been holding them back, or why, what made them actually realize that they do need to make some changes in their life so they actually can get to that 2.0 version of themselves. Pitch the product in a way where it's the bridge between Heaven and Hell Island, right? Or Hell and Heaven Island, either way. Help them facilitate that to make a decision. Is there an actual problem to solve? If there's no problem to solve, it's like, what are we even here for? And do they actually want to make a change? Some people have problems that they're comfortable. They don't want to make a change. Do they sound like this is something they actually want? Right? Listen to their tone, quality of answers. Super important. So that's a breakdown of that. key fundamentals. But let's break down the actual process. So your company's up here, or your offer, coaching, consulting, whatever that may be, and basically you want to interview someone. Now, when you interview someone, you want to make sure that you're actually asking the right questions on the interview, because what usually happens, especially with people trying to scale past 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 per month, they just want someone in straight away because they're solving their own problems in their own business. So it's like, just get someone and get them in. Yes, however, you still want to be careful, because not everyone's about it. Now, not every setter has experience when they first come on board. Depending you as a company owner, that's up to you if you want to onboard someone without experience or not. When I first started setting, I personally didn't have experience, but I wanted it super bad. So if they have that work ethic and they have that grit and that gut in them, and you could tell, give them a shot, right? But you still need to ask the right questions, and they need to give you the right answers. Walk me through your last role from the first dial to book call, so they understand the process. How many dials per day were you making consistently at your peak? What makes an appointment qualified in your eyes? What do you say when someone tells you just send information? When your numbers drop, what's the first thing you change? Have you got experience? What were your past jobs? What do you do outside of work? This tells you how they are as a person. Are you driven and hungry individual? What's your why? Okay. Onboarding process and expectations. Access to CRM, dialer, calendar, payment tools, and clear expectations in our LMS to make dials, qualify leads, book calls, click payments if it's required, KPIs, daily activity explained, and when they first get introduced, they can shadow the top setter or closer or listen to them calls, have gold star call reviews that they can actually listen to so they can crush, right? Product and offer and ICP understanding. A lot of getting a clear idea of what your offer is about and your offer, and understanding it, a very deep process to even your understanding, because you've built the company or you've built your own offer, is goated, right? We have to make their job as easy as possible for this. So that's where an LMS comes in place, and a hub to be able to actually store all that there. That way they've got all the information, everything they need, so they can actually crush. Gold star core reviews is important. Scripts and training. So standardized scripts and training on your specific offer. There should be set script framework around your offer. This makes it easy for reviews to train on. Making sure we're having genuine conversations and selling the meeting for closes, right? That's super important, because like I mentioned, you don't want to be a script monkey, because a script monkey, they can tell on the other end of the phone that you're being a script monkey. They want genuine humans to speak to. Yeah. But call flow understanding. So understanding what each point in a set call, what it actually does and what it actually means. Because if you're just free flowing a set call, but you don't actually understand why you're actually doing something and why you're asking a question, you don't know why you're going to get the outcome. You don't know what's going through the other person's head. So this is where training comes in place, and having an understanding of that so we can absolutely crush. What each bit of the call actually is doing for the prospect. Knowing this will help with show rates and actual call flow. Right, first live calls, once you're actually trained up, it may take a week, a week and a half, which is I say is a bit of a long time, but it could take a week and a half depending on the actual person. They can start getting some calls in, start dialing some reps, and start going crazy, right, for the first 2-3 days. And we ideally want to aim for anywhere between, I'd say, 50 to 70% show rate is really, really good. And show rate is the biggest metric to control as a setup, because that's what they have control over. Feedback loops and reviewing. So reviewing calls through the framework and making sure we're hitting each point on the set call, clarity of the situation, problem, need and want for the specific offer, and make sure we're actually qualifying them for our offer. And then pitching them, a slight pitch in the set call for what them actually do, and we actually book them in. Now, what happens here is you have ROI feedback loop with training and basically reviews. So this just goes in circles, right, until your setters are absolutely ramped and they're absolutely crushing, and they're doing a good job. And you will continuously do reviews and stuff like that. At the end of the day, sales is a lot of it is mindset. So once your setters are actually locked in, they know what they're doing. Yes, core reviews and everything are going to help. However, having the mindset of wanting it bad enough and keeping them engaged and like almost having it like a football team, and having that team culture is what's really going to drive things to the next level. Because people just want a genuine conversation on the other end. Yes, we need clarity of the situation, problem, maybe a why now, get into Heaven Island and then desire and whatnot. But overall, they just want a genuine conversation, feel heard, feel like we can solve their problems, and they're going to set and show up. It's making them feel good on a set call. That's the most important thing by far. Full ramp and dial up. This is where, they've got all access to your leads and absolutely smashing it. This may take 2 weeks, for example, dependent on the actual person. But the core metrics to absolutely obsess over, and I've got tracking sheets and everything for this, but you want to be able to, we have tracking sheets that literally dials in everything. It's got everything on the tracking sheets, so you don't miss any of this, and it all goes to a dashboard, which is important because you want everything in a dashboard so you know what's actually going on. But basically you want to be able to track leads, how many dials or how many leads they're getting through ads or organic, how many dials they're actually making per day, how many conversations they're having, because not everyone's going to answer, who's qualified actually out of them conversations for your specific offer and what the pricing is, how many calls booked did we get out of this, and out of the calls booked, what is the show rate, and out of the show rate, that is then the closer's job, how much cash per live call have we collected, and how much cash collected or revenue have we influenced for the company, for us, ourselves, right? And these are just some conversions in terms of how to actually work out your metrics. But overall, this is a breakdown of ramping a setter and like the mindset of an actual specific setter. Setters want to learn, and people are either going to be about it or they're not. So having correct setters who are about it, want to put in the work, want to improve, want to make a good living is a good way to be. And also, like I said, seeing that personal development, that envisionment for themselves. When you have all this, right, they're going to want to work. They're going to put in, big days, and they're going to absolutely smash it, keeping them to a standard and keeping your company to a standard so everyone can earn more money, which is what it's all about. And your setters are fucking dialed in, boys. You're going to collect more cash, make more fucking money, and absolutely have a good time. So making sure they're dialed and making sure they're actually ramped up properly is a good way to be. But I hope you enjoyed it, and we're going to get into way more stuff